I posted a clip of me singing Sober by Tool, or part of it, on my Twitter account. If you want to go take a peek at that while we're all getting settled in, please gather yourselves, simmer, settle in, because, on so many fronts, we we get up in the morning, and in our own application of reasonable stoic responsibility or something, whatever your personal philosophy is, and you put one foot in front of the other, and you make the best of the day, and you try over the course of the day to do everything you can to make this day worth the time spent and of merit in the arc of your life. And or you get up in the morning and you're Russell Brand and you just try to fuck with the world and scare the shit out of everybody who watches your show. I don't know what the fuck Russell Brand's gig is now. He originally, he's been doing like hippie Alex Jones for a while. We know this. Like, that was the brand decision for the rustling of the brand. And I don't know, also lately, people get into habits. And I try to avoid them when I'm doing my live stream. I try not to get locked into some sort of habitual behavior. It happens, but I don't have like a pat opening yet. I know I need to work on that, clearly, and some see you tomorrows. But this whole thing where he's doing this like borderline, hands up bullshit hand motion every time he opens the show to kind of get your attention, I guess. He does it for now he's doing the Trump version. But it's literally it's like he went to school for public speaking. Not school. If he went to school, he'd realize he shouldn't. But he saw a TED Talk on hand gestures and just decided to use that and maybe it'll stick. And then it became a habit. The title of this one, now in this video, judging from, which I have not watched, but judging from the title and the description, this is one of those videos that this is what I would call the hard sell for Russell's meditation and spiritual path, or whatever techniques he sells on his other channel. Because one of the things you do is you create demand. It's kind of like a drug dealer. First one's free, and then after a while, it's going to cost you ass, gas, or grass, according to Edmund Kemper. The title of this is fucking terrifying. Well, yes. Look, honestly, I was about to make he's a terrifying joke, but honest to God, has there ever been a person that, if you're not, I don't know, a young woman who is meeting an actor that they enjoyed in a movie, that you've been excited to meet, and he fixed you a drink and suddenly you're losing consciousness and he looks like that? Besides that, is there anything terrifying about this man? No. Maybe that's what it is. Psychologically, we all kind of reflect onto the world the fear that our weaknesses will be confronted if we're not in control of ourselves. Now, all life, all action, everything isn't projection. There are absolutely closeted gay people who use the illusion of being straight and homophobic and anti-gay language to attack the gay community because they themselves don't want to be discovered. That's true, but that's not all anti-gay people. They're not all, and that's why homophobia doesn't actually. It would be a mental disease. So that's ableist, I guess. I could call out people for being homophobic. Why don't you call them out for being acrophobic? It's weird. Anyways, so yes, there are closeted gay people who mistreat gay people to make bad ill-mannered straight people around them not think that they're gay. Like, that's been around for a long time. But it is by no means the majority of anti-gay sentiment. It's an absurdity to insist otherwise, because suddenly you're making anti-gay attacks the fault of gays? Like, get out of here. It's the vast majority of vicious attacks on people or castigations are not based on projection, but there are some very distinct ones that we see all the time. Yeah, everything Trump says is a confession. We've seen this over and over again. Now, when it comes to the psychological side of the world that Alex Jones puts forward, and in many ways Russell Brand does, I personally believe, this is my own kind of read of watching this shit over and over and over again and trying to gather a root of where this shit comes from. It appears to me that both of them are fundamentally paranoid about their own weakness in the world. You know what I mean? Like, they are so worried that if any shit really went down, they'd be done for. So these are two separate reactions. Russell's whole thing is, don't touch me, stay away. I'm a peacenik. This is the body language stuff that he's always doing. Like, I'm not part of this. If you guys are murdering each other, I'm not on the side of the victim. So murderer, don't touch me. And I'm not on the side of the murderer. So if victim, you manage to get on your feet, don't attack me. I'm not with him. So I'm just on the side, I guess, enjoying the view. And Alex Jones, of course, he solves it with fake bravado, puffery. He can't, his muscle mass is shit. So he just defaults to volume and bloating, argues, like sells dick pills and garbles his voice because he thinks if his voice sounds like this over time, it sounds tougher. So it's actually a reason why he never, as a broadcaster, protected his voice. And he just screams because it's machismo. It's an attempt to, every morning waking up, it makes my throat hurt just fucking pretending to be Alex Jones for a second. That as both of those assholes get up every morning, they project onto the world an enormous amount of fear. And it is reflected in how they respond to things. Now, that's their own personal fear. That's something that's visceral, like a personal paranoia. On the other hand, both of them are rich and don't feel like, are never confronted with an actual danger. So 98% of their physical and psychological makeup knows that they are never going to come to any harm. So they don't have to worry about it. So the rest of the time, they realize, I can sell this fear to somebody else. This is a marketable commodity. I only eat 20% of my fear crop. I can sell the rest. That honestly. So that is my genuine assessment of this fucker and of Alex Jones. I'm not speaking, pejoratively about this. This is my having watched this shit and trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. Both Alex Jones and Russell Brand are fear farmers. That's what they do for a living. They don't stream. They're not broadcasters. They're not in media. They are fear farmers. The whole thing is scare the living fuck out of your viewers, make them paranoid about the entire world around them, and then, right when they are shakiest, be the solution. And the solution never, it's for all the shitting on Big Pharma that this asshole does and other people do, there is never a cure to this fear, but they've got a medication you can be on forever. That's the business model. The reason they look at Big Pharma is like, Big Pharma doesn't want to cure you of cancer. They just want to put you on a drug that you have to take for the rest of your life. What the fuck do you think this is? And I have to say, a reasonable amount of introspection is always valuable in human life. And it is not, I can comfortably say that the goal of Alex Jones and the goal of Russell Brand is not my goal for my audience here or anybody I come in contact with. And not only would I feel fucking sick to my stomach if I made my living scaring the shit out of people for cash. Like this, not like horror movies. Those have another value. We'll talk about that at another time. But, I mean, it would make me sick to my stomach. But it would also, like, it's morally reprehensible. It's grotesque. Bannon is the same, except Bannon's just a kind of run-of-the-mill macho dickhead. He's in the Greg Kelly zone. These are guys, this is on a lower scale. These, like Russell Brand and Alex Jones, are the kind of exaggerations of this business model. And make no mistake, it is absolutely that. I mean, look at how much he started selling his tour on it. And his tour, like the video of his tour is like, 20% him fucking talking on stage like he's doing stand-up. And then the rest of it's him sitting in the stage meditating with the crowd like some fucking, Jim Jones wannabe. It's fucked up. But this is a very distinct thing. And so not only do I feel an incredible freedom in being psychologically, philosophically, psychosexually, geopolitically, and intellectually aware of my own faults and my own visions and my own desires in the world, that I can look at this shit and go, this is evil. This is fucking evil. It's not an accident. It's on purpose. It's done just for financial gain. And it is meant to be an ongoing process. Anybody who's watched Alex Jones or read David Icke's books or any of that shit, which I have done all of that on your behalf, knows that these fuckers who tell you that they're from everything from there's an Illuminati of human beings to lizards that drink human milkshakes, all those fuckers, there's never an end to that. There's never a point. It's just, they learned it from end times preachers forever. And they're like, what a great business model. And from a moral standpoint, there's no difference between this asshole and Jimmy Savile. Because they're both monsters. And they both prey on fear and use their fame as a fucking crowbar. It's gross. That said, let's see what the guy in, are those turtles? Those are fish. In the Japanese tigerfish cardigan and the, what do you think? I don't know. Again, the necklace here, I'd love to know the story on this. Like if I ever end up on Russell's, podcast, which I have no interest in doing, all I would talk about is like, what the fuck is with your costume? Because that's what this is. This is a costume. I know I overcompensate. I know I go the other direction. In my normal life, I wear what I call the gray man. I don't want attention to be paid to my clothes per se. So I wear tight-fitting, visually stimulating clothing. Functional. I wear jeans and a t-shirt and tennis shoes. That's pretty much all I wear all the time. And then if I have stage wear, I wear stage wear. So I'm very aware of the importance of stage wear, costuming, to get a point across, to get attention. It's valuable. I'm not saying it doesn't. But I'm saying when you wear it all the time, it's a little hinky. So here we go. What is so fucking terrifying?
Chinese lockdown must be terrifying.
Oh, okay. Hold on. He said Chinese lockdown. While he's apparently thinks I'm holding a gun on him.
Anyone who's witnessed the new Chinese lockdown must be terrified. The wailing from the towers, the cats locked up in bags. But could such a...
The cats what? Hold on. first of all, what a lot of us viewed that, and we felt for the people that were in those videos. I showed them on my morning show, and I've been telling you fuckers for a long time, about the reality of what's going on in China versus the sort of political narrative and the media narrative about it. It's totally divergent. And as someone, I can speak Chinese. I've been over there. I know the culture. It's dear to me. I've been saying this for a long time. But you're not terrified when you see that. You feel for those people, but you're not like, oh my God, what if that happened to me? Think about what that is. Think about the self-involved bullshit that is involved in looking at videos of people in Shanghai screaming because they've been in lockdown and going, oh, that's terrifying. Can you imagine making it more about you?
Anyone who's witnessed the new Chinese lockdown must be terrified.
Anyone who's witnessed it must be terrified. That's not a question. That's an order. Think about the psychological wrangling that's happening. I mean, the breakdown of this is fucking crazy.
Wailing from the towers, the cats locked up in bags, but
cats locked up in bags. These are the two standout moments. The wailings in the towers, the cats locked up in bags, the hamsters on a treadmill, which represent the workers against the giant conglomerates that are destroying the world. I'm not saying anything that I'm saying right now.
Such a thing ever happen here? And are there any signs that we're heading in that direction?
And by the way, are there any signs that we're heading in that direction? And then look at his fucking hand gestures. First of all, I guess we're just giving up on that being the white supremacy symbol altogether, which I'm glad it isn't. The greatest okay sign in film history is literally Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop. So no, white supremacists cannot have this. You can't fucking have it. You don't get it. Sorry. And at some point, Nazis, I got news for you. It might take 500 years. It might take 1,000. But the Tibetans are getting their symbol back. Fuck you. I don't care how many shit Christians there are. The cross can still have worth for people for which it has meaning. So blow me. Anyways, never mind. Look at this, though. Look at this. Look at the hand gestures. Is there any signs? That's a yes. That's him fucking how there are a video of allegedly infected cats that authorities were suffocating. Yes, I know. And they killed dogs as well. One of the stories that came out in China is they beat a corgi to death. The Chinese authorities beat this dog to death because the owner was taken away in quarantine, and the neighbors, they've said it, the authorities said it might carry COVID, so they just killed it right in front of everybody, and the people around were screaming and that kind of stuff. It's terrible. What I'm saying is that even in those moments, that's heartbreaking, but again, terrifying. It's again making it about you, and then. Are there signs that it could be happening here? He's signaling yes.
Hello there, you 5.5 million.
5.5 million followers. Now, granted, I mean, Macedonian hacker farms don't have a lot of places to go these days, so, puffing up channels is one of the ways they meet quota.
Awakening wonders on a voyage together to new truth.
First of all, new truth, and then he's going shocker on us. Is he okay? Did he do the same Trump fucking Hitler speech study program? If you can't remember certain words, attach the memory to a fingertip or a section of your finger, and then you can remember these things while you're on stage at the TED Talk. Big smile.
New systems to new ways of understanding. Thank you for joining us on this voyage. Now, this is, in a sense, a terrifying video. I know loads.
This is it. This is in a sense. So it's not fucking terrifying. Why don't you title this, this is in a sense terrifying. Can you imagine A prick like me walking towards you with 2 fingers extended.
You will have already seen those wailing towers and those cats zipped up in bags. And this
Yeah, you mentioned those already.
horrifying glimpse of what true state authoritarianism looks like.
Right. True state authoritarianism. But, I mean, is it really that different over here? I mean, if you think about it.
Have a look at that video in a moment. If you've not...
If you haven't seen the video, it's fucking terrifying. And who would I be to pass up a chance to fucking terrify you? But touring UK. I've got 9 shows. I'm in Hull. I'm in Butt Sniff. I'm in Cat Bagger. I'm in Glistopole. I'm in Frump Diddley. I'm down by the Shire. I'm fucking with some hobbits. And then it's a moment, it's comedy, it's meditation. I'll scare the shit out of you by playing videos of Nazi atrocities and going, I mean, basically. And then right when you're crying, we'll all sit down and have a meditate, right?
See me live, you can see me live. If you're not a subscriber...
No, I can't. No, I'm not. No one's fucking flying it. Stop pretending you're just in the fucking UK.
Please subscribe now. It's vital that you subscribe. And if you're not...
No, it's not vital. It's not vital at all. If you watch something, it'll keep showing up in your fucking feed. You don't even have to subscribe to most things. I mean, you should to my channel. I'll need the help. He's got 5.5 million. The algorithm kicks him into your fucking feed whether you want it there or not.
Subscribe to my mailing list. Please click on the link at the end to join my...
Why would you want this in your inbox? Why would you want this fuckery in your inbox?
Community. This story is terrifying. When I saw those...
Is it? But my question is, should I be terrified? I'm really on the fence. Please, Russell, let me know.
Of those tower blocks and the wailing and the crying
and the terrifying crying and the wailing and the crying and the... Did I say cats in bags yet? Have I said that? Who's got a cat in a bag?
As a cat lover, I've got like 11 cats.
None of them are in bags, for the record.
Seeing those cats zipped up in a bag, I thought, well, maybe that's a temporary solution. No, I thought, bloody...
Nothing like a cute cat suffocation joke, you know. I'm breaking the ice. That's what I'm doing.
Hell, what's going on in the world? When we talk about the Chinese state and the power of the Chinese state, wherever...
When we talk, do we talk about it, Russell? Do we talk about it? Or do we use the horrors of it, the genuine atrocities to go, well, I mean, isn't it the same?
You stand politically, I guess you somewhat see it as a cautionary tale, a warning, an othered space to use...
Yeah. Don't have that system of government. There's the cautionary tale. Because there is no circumstance where that system of government does not involve the locking up and murdering of millions of people. Just not just how it comes in, but how it sticks around. There's no other version of it. Never has been, never will be. Yeah, cautionary tale. But it's probably only over there. I mean, but basically we've got cats in bags.
Saeed's term, the Oriental, this kind of mystical other that...
Fuck you! What do you mean the Oriental? Nobody's saying this about the fucking South Korean government, you prick. Or the Taiwanese. Fuck, the Vietnamese are technically communist, and we're not dealing with them on the same level. The Oriental, fuck you. Nobody's othering the fucking people in Hong Kong fighting for democracy, dick. There's millions of people in China who don't want to live this way, who don't have much fucking choice. A lot of them, by the way, are Uyghurs who are being systematically wiped out, sterilized, thrown into re-education camps where the women are raped and the men are beaten, forced into slave labor. Yeah, not forced labor, slave labor. Those people aren't the other. Those people are just like all of us if we woke up or were born into a system like that, and we feel for them. We're not othering those people because of what's happening to them. You fuck.
Be poised as a comparison to the way things are done occidentally here in the West.
Yeah, it's just a different, you know what I mean? We just look at it like, ooh, and like, hey, about our shit, and we go, ooh. And like, what kind of fucking simpleton thinks of geopolitics like this? I mean, his audience is full of Trump supporters now, so maybe he's just going by the comment sections. Honest to God, between the Russian bots and the Trump supporters that follow his fucking channel, which make up the mass of his US audience. No question. I mean, why the fuck? Jimmy Dore still, to this day, along with Max Blumenthal, deny the Uyghur genocide. Just deny it flat out. It's not true. It's a concoction of Western media. The Chinese are not at fault in any of this stuff. The same way the Bucha massacre is a false flag. It's been made up by the Ukrainians. Every death in Ukraine is from the bullet of every civilian death is from the bullet of a Ukrainian soldier who just decided they didn't like their own people magically on the day the fucking Russians invaded. Like, finally, I get to shoot this bitch. Like, that's what they think. And this guy wants, and I'm assuming he's speaking for his audience, because again, we all have self-selected crowds. This fear farmer is weeding the garden of that he talks to of anybody who doesn't spot this bullshit.
A horrifying snapshot of what state power can look like in extreme. Let's have a look at it for a moment.
Yeah, don't pass up a chance to be fucking terrified.
这个是正常的叫啊，好了，终于2分钟，所有人都在叫。5分钟前头，俺们叫完没几个了，现在突然之间，所有人都叫了，要死！再这样弄下去，我跟你讲，真的要出事体了，操，麻烦了。
Now, when I saw this video, I was terrified. Let me tell you something.
But were you terrified? Were you terrified? Poor you. Did you feel, Russell, did you feel trapped in an apartment building in fucking Shanghai that authorities had come over and put a fucking plastic seal on your door, and if it's split, they arrest you? And you know how they arrest you? They don't just take you away in cuffs and read you your rights. They throw you in a fucking metal container and they drive you to a hospital that the world marveled at the building of the hospitals. Oh my God, the hospitals that they're building, which are just prisons. They put you in the room, and you'll end up going to jail for violating the rules, but they'll wait to see if you die of COVID. They just wait. They just put you in there, shove food under the door every so often, but you're basically in total isolation for at least 14 days. And if you survive, then they send you to jail.
Generally feel optimistic about human beings, about...
Wait a minute. You don't what?
I was terrified. Let me tell you something. I generally feel optimistic about human beings, about civilization, about society, about...
Since when? I generally feel very optimistic about the world. Everything's got a silver lining to it. You know, that's how the Illuminati gets you. It's silver nitrate. They're coating the clouds in it. It's how they don't believe in climate change, so they're going to kill us all off. They're self-selecting them, so there's going to be 9 people left on the earth, and we're all going to be automatons. They've decided not to build robots. They've decided to put your iPhone's going to be put into your fucking skull, and you're going to... But basically, I'm optimistic.
Collective ability to change the world. I know we've got the resources within ourselves.
You know why you feel that, fucko? Because you live in the West. And you have the freedom to actually act on that. None of which you do. You piss on democracy at every turn. You don't vote. You undermine any kind of genuine progress with all this third-party bullshit that you... In our fucking country, when you don't even fucking vote here.
Believe in us because I believe in you. But when
come on. I believe in you, but only... And by you, I mean my subscribers. If you don't subscribe, I think you're fake. I think there's only 5.5 million people in the world. I don't know how I became Michael Caine. Listen here. Some men just want to watch the world burn, as long as they can roast marshmallows on it.
Saw that, I thought, oh my God, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're literally doomed. When you see people trapped.
Oh, fuck you. Maybe we're literally doomed. How, David Cross, bless his heart, used to have a bit about, do you think anybody who worked in the Twin Towers that they have at the casino here in Vegas felt differently about 9/11? Like, I was working in the Twin Towers on 9/11, not the real ones, the fake ones next to the Eiffel Tower. It was terrifying.
Their houses, wailing out in horror while their pets are being mercilessly executed on the streets. It's difficult to think that there's hope for humanity.
No, it isn't. Fuck you. First of all, understand the underlying racism of this motherfucker thinking that Chinese people want this experience in general, and that this is what they're going to keep serving, like that their reaction to this long term is going to be to keep this system of government and continue to be treated like this. Like, they're never going to have a revolution. They don't mind. These wailing people in all their fucking apartment buildings aren't humans at all. They're just kind of noisy biological entities that, through their screaming, support the authoritarian government that is holding them. Get fucked.
As long as we see China as a cautionary tale rather than a model that ought be replicated within.
Which, by the way, you and Jimmy Dore have both said.
Increasing authoritarianism here in the West, then I still see that there's a way out of this for us.
Oh, thank God. Okay, good. At least, okay, we can. Are we starting the meditation now? He still feels like there's hope.
Before we delve any deeper into the challenges we're facing right now in the West with social media control, with the co-opting of science, the utilization of the scientific model to enhance state authoritarianism.
I'm basically like, if you think about it, I am a Chinese person trapped in a condo with whose cat is in a bag. I mean, I've got 3 reasons. I might have a 4th.
Let's look at exactly what's going on right now in Shanghai so as we can see if it's a
Yeah, let's contrast and compare. Is this asshole's misreading of news stories to create an authoritarian narrative in the West around the normal tug and pull between power structures and freedom that constantly goes on in a democracy, which is exactly what you fucking want. And I mean, I'm basically a cat in a bag.
Comparison and what we can learn from what's happening there. One of the hardest things to bear about the Shanghai lockdown, says a contact who has been shut in her small apartment with her father for the past 2 weeks, is the uncertainty.
Yes, she's uncertain if this man is indeed her father.
Spends her days on WeChat message groups trying to coordinate bulk food orders or looking out the window to see where the authorities have placed the red lines of their cordon sanitaire, which residents must not cross.
Is that Chinese cordon sanitaire? You do realize there was a French section of Shanghai. There's areas in Shanghai where it said no dogs or Chinese allowed. The signs are still up. You can go look at them for when the colonial powers divided up Shanghai. It was gross. But yeah, call it the cordon sanitaire. Why not?
There is little.
That's the problem with the West. You know what I mean? The French don't even have a word for cordon sanitaire.
Other information. Social media shows a city on the edge. Residents yell from their balconies and demand food. Drones broadcast messages demanding they return inside. Thousands of people who have tested positive are crammed into isolation centers.
Yes. None of that shit is happening here. You know what's happened in the United States? The mask mandate on airplanes has been extended 2 weeks. 2 weeks, Russell. Because of the BA2 variant. They're just checking. Just being sensible. You're in a fucking metal tube. 2 more weeks. Fucking simmer.
Sounds like the saturation of authoritarianism, albeit one person's experience of it.
Yeah, I mean, should we even really believe this person? I mean, we just saw video of thousands of people screaming from their fucking apartments. But I mean, take it with a grain of salt, you know? Now, that shit I'll read from the Mint Press and what Max Blumenthal and Jimmy Dore tell me, I mean, that's gospel, of course. But this, it's a Financial Times reporter, and he is speaking to a woman who, according to him, is Chinese. So there's something very Oriental about what she's saying, you know.
Of cordon sanitaire, isolation centres. This is what it looks like when totalitarianism, total authority.
I see. That's what totalitarianism means. I thought it was total tears in your Aryanism. It's Aryans who tear everything up totally. I'm going to call it that. Stick to it. I don't give a shit.
Point here is, without democracy, a central
do we have total Aryanism?
Authoritarian force decides how serious it is and then implements measures on that basis.
Fuck you. We have a representative government. You live in a country with a queen. Piss off, you xenomorph.
Democracy, all of the varying scientific and then popular opinions can be discussed and measures can be enacted that is a reflection of that. It's been an interesting area where I had to edit out what I was saying. And measures can be enacted that is a reflection of that. It's been an...
It's kind of jump cutty, little jump cutty. What'd you say, Russell? Who is it at Russell Brand Inc. TM copyright 2022 that cuts out the, like, does he have is it just basically him, an editor and a legal department? They're like, that'll get you off YouTube. I'll cut you. Yeah, just gotta, no. But leave that for the Rumble.
Interesting journey, the coronavirus pandemic, hasn't it? There was a point where all of us were terrified. All of us were...
Oh, yeah. No, well, not all of us. Some of us were cautious and aware of danger without being terrified. Some of us were deeply saddened, Russell, this will shock you, by people who were harmed and killed by the disease, and still are. Many of us are cautiously optimistic about the way the world's going, are taking every precaution we can to mitigate the dangers of the situation we found ourselves in. Terrifying, not so much. So it might be, doesn't mean some people weren't, but it sounds like that's the like, this is just Terrifying Farms. That's where he is. That's at Russell Brands. Come on down to Terrifying Farms. We'll scare the shit out of you and use it for fertilizer. Cha-ching!
To do whatever it took. Why? Because of the sanctity of human life, because life is sacred, because we should be taking care of one another.
But that's just the opinion of one Chinese lady, so, I mean, grain of salt.
Protecting one another. If over time those opinions evolve, not necessarily the belief that human life is sacred, but the...
Yeah, no, you don't have to start believing that. Don't. I mean, I've got a lot of... Tell me in the comment sections how many times you've jacked off to Atlas Shrugged.
Degree of threat that this pandemic poses, then necessarily the measures would have to reflect those changing opinions.
Yeah, as will the introductions of vaccines and treatments, the awareness of of how dangerous the disease is for certain quarters of the population, how to deal with that when they encounter it, best treatments, you know, shit that happens when science and society encounters a new threat and eventually figures the threat out and learns how to deal with it. Think malaria, like mosquito nets, fucko. Seriously, do we really live in a different world now that quinine exists? I mean, think about it.
And that changing reality. Because, of course, the authority that undergirded
That was a bunch of chops.
the lockdowns in our countries, and I mean all of us, there's no one.
Yeah, everybody. I mean, obviously, I mean us. I mean the Occidental here. I don't mean the Orient with the Orientals. I don't mean them. Obviously, they can't watch this. But, us in the West, the truly terrified, the truly controlled, those of us that live in, Western democracies under a totalitarian regime of our own psyche, obviously not, they're not watching this in Russia right now. Well, I mean, the people that at the hacker farm that pay my bills do, but, that fucking hell.
Exclude from our is the truth, was undergirded.
Wait, what? Say that again, fucko?
I mean all of us, there's no one I would exclude from our is the truth, was...
Yeah, I wouldn't exclude anyone. I mean, obviously, the Oriental.
Undergirded by science. This is what we have to do. It's scientific. But whose science? What science? Because what...
Yeah, where is science? I mean, really? I mean, aren't witch doctors, haven't they been given a bad rap? I wear my COVID necklace, and I've been amazingly able to avoid COVID through a mix of my magic necklace, my vaccination, and my avoiding of the unwashed masses.
I understand when someone says it's undergirded by science. This is objectively true. You cannot argue with this. There's no counter science. We don't need to censor other people.
And again, this argument's all over the fucking right wing. Look, constantly evolving medical knowledge is not evidence of a fucking conspiracy, you bastard. Nobody goes out after a hurricane and says, the wind isn't even blowing. I don't know what they were on about.
Whose voices?
They told us to shelter in place during the hurricane. And then I go outside after it's passed, and I'm like, it's nice out. I mean, my house is shredded, and I'm not dead. But I mean, did anything really change?
You don't need to censor contrary arguments because this is just true. The sun's up there.
Yeah, you don't have to tell people, don't walk out into the hurricane. And anybody who says walking out in the hurricane is the only way that they can see God, or that the only way to save yourself is to expose yourself early and often to the hurricane. Nobody needs to stop people from saying that in the shelter to children.
It's burning hydrogen, it's turning into helium, it's lighting up the planet. It happened 13.8 billion years ago. Science, science, science. Incontrovertible facts. But is that the kind of science we're discussing here?
No, we're talking about terrifying cats in bags. Is there a better face for a grown man who's in over his head? I mean, they edited this a bunch, but I think the narrative is weaving a bit. I think the edibles are kicking in.
By Fiona Fox, Chief Executive of the Science Media Centre, writing in The Guardian. That's where to direct your lawyers. 20...
Wait, is somebody else in the room with him?
Writing in The Guardian. That's where to direct your lawyers. 20 years ago, research...
Yeah, somebody else is in the room filming it and cut this together. That's where to direct your lawyers. Whether it's about COVID or badger culls, the science can be unclear, but the public must hear about it from the researchers, not government press officers. This is in the UK. And this is an opinion piece. Hold on one second. Guardian. Scientists must I can type, be free to... Yeah, okay. So this is the article. Oh, get out of here. 20 years ago, when I set up the Science Media Center, researchers were notably absent from the nation's airwaves. Frenzies about Frankenstein foods, designer babies, and MMR may have gripped the media, but most scientists put their heads down and try to avoid controversy. By the way, Frankenstein foods, designer babies, and MMR, this is all stuff that that Russell would warn you about. The price was the British public's rejection of GM technologies. Yeah, genetically modified food, by the way. This scientist is pro-GMO. Have your own thoughts about that, but know that for a fact. So we'll see if Russell, let's see, I want to see this. Does Russell suddenly come out as pro-GMO? And how will that land with his people that believe that that COVID came from snake venom to turn us into Satan?
That's where to direct your lawyers. 20 years ago, researchers were notably absent from the nation's airwaves. Today, researchers recognise it's not enough just to do great science. They must also communicate its implications. As a result, the UK now gets most of its science news directly from the best researchers, translated by outstanding science correspondents. However, this rule has a key exception, which occurs when government press teams get involved, and they are now exerting increasing control over UK science communication. So now there's an intervention. We're not just talking about science. The government...
Yeah, that's because researchers oftentimes can be myopic in their recognition of social behavior. And if they come out and go, well, the threat's like 2%, and the government goes 2%. Have you looked at the demographics of the areas where the breakout are? No. In the lab, it's 2%. In reality, it's going to be 17%. Well, yeah, but we don't, that's sociological. We don't do that. We do the biochemical. Yeah, politicians are a mix between material reality and public response. They are indicative of public response, good and bad. There's a lot of times that politicians fuck it up. There's also a lot of times where scientists will come out and go, this is not really a threat, when it fucking well is, if you look at the actual makeup of the public or the number of people who could be affected by this, or the unknown variables that they are disregarding because they are speaking specifically about something, and the misreading of their statement when it might not even be that they're saying that this, it's safe to go in the water. They're going, statistically, sharks only kill this many people a year. That's statistically true. There's also, it's statistically true that a great white shark who ate a whole person wouldn't probably eat again for 6 days. So, you're good till next Tuesday. And should I worry about any other sharks? No. Great whites are nomadic. So there's not more great whites? No, there might be more great whites. They're just not together in a group. I thought that's what you meant. Yeah, everyone is in the water right now, and we can only see sort of a pink foam.
Is intervening inside. That's what it's saying here in The Guardian.
Yeah, that's what it says in here. By the way, direct your lawyers to him because he's telling you what it says in The Guardian while misrepresenting the contents of the article.
Maybe done in universities and far...
By the way, he skips this whole part. He went to a little bit of that and then this part. Examples range from research on TB and badgers to studies on COVID-19's prevalence. Problem has worsened with the creation of the UK Research and Innovation in 2018, which is before COVID. 9 separate agencies were combined into one body close to government. The move gave scientists a voice at number 10 and the Treasury, but also resulted in scientists losing independence and their own voice, a trend since lamented by the organization's founding CEO, Sir Walter Walport, which, honestly. And first chair, Sir John Kingman. By the way, The Kingsman those are really fun movies. I'm just saying. Yeah, Stephen, bye. What kind of bullshit is that? Let's see. During the pandemic, major COVID studies carried out at universities were commissioned by government departments and involved scientists working collaboratively to the public's undoubted benefit. Undoubted. However, That independently gathered scientific data also got swept up into a communication system designed for publicizing the government's ideas and essentially political activity. Yeah, that's their fucking job. And the arm of communication that scientists put up to interact with the government is going to deal with that. If you want an independent body of scientists, form one. Nothing is stopping you. As a matter of fact, multiple versions of that exist in the United States, and I'm certain multiple versions of that exist in the UK. However, that independently gathered scientific data also goes swapped into communication. Okay, but I was approached several times by government comms experts, frustrated by the mixed messages emanating from senior scientists who spoke openly about the uncertainties and gaps in our knowledge on everything from mask wearing to the risks of school kids driving transmissions. How could they curtail this? They were asking the wrong person. I understood their frustration that argued that the messaging is for politicians and that glossing over uncertainty and conflicting views could risk undermining public trust in science at a critical time. There was no such thing as the science on COVID. Right. It was ongoing, but you're dealing with a threat. They have to deal with that. They have to mitigate the deaths. The scientists don't. The scientists can literally sit there in a lab later, get some tissue samples and go, oh, that's what killed them. Not that these people don't care about everybody else, and not that they're not working on a cure. But the politicians might be slightly concerned if their voters are dying in mass, or the threat of their voters dying in mass, is happening. It's occurring, and it might get worse. And the scientists are like, well, it might get worse, might get better. I mean, it's worse in other countries, and the countries that have let it go are kind of getting fucked up. But some of the other countries haven't had it yet. We'll see. There's no real science on this. We haven't done a double-blind study on whether or not it's fucking happening right now. I understood their frustration. Okay, this land grab for science communication has occasionally taken a more sinister turn in the form of where you think this, I guarantee this clip, this part of it, while he ignores the other stuff, he'll say there's no such thing as the and go, aha. And then he'll go, the land grab for science communication, which just sounds like they're killing the indigenous people of science, has occasionally taken a more sinister in the form of proposals such as changes to the Civil Service Code, which would have prevented any government-funded scientists from speaking to the media without ministers' permission, or the anti-lobbying clause, which would have barred scientists in receipt of government money from petitioning for policy change. Sorry, you're in a monarchy. I don't know what to tell you. Come over here. These attempts were seen off, but these attempts were seen off. Oh, that's British talk. Didn't happen. These attempts didn't happen. So people tried to do shit, and other people tried to stop them from doing shit, and then it didn't amount to anything. But we should be concerned, because we're basically cats in bags. But the fact that people sat in Whitehall developing such policies should remind us that vigilance is vital. They develop all kinds of policies. Everyone sitting at a table. Do you want diversity of opinion or not? So if everybody's sitting at the table, somebody's going to go, why don't we just shut them the fuck up? Write that down. And then somebody's go, you can't shut them the fuck up. Okay, write that down. Somebody wrote down we should shut them the fuck up. That got written down. All right. It's like military plans. Do you know, there's leaked documents that the Pentagon has an attack plan for Guam as a pretext to attacking Japan if they go nuclear again. Yeah, because there's somebody at the DOD whose job it is every day as the geopolitical systems in the world change to go, what if this happened? Would there be a cascading effect? Yes, there would. If this guy died, the guy taking his place is from this country, and he's threatened this person, and this person would blame us and not him, so they would probably attack this, and if they attack this, it would stop all the oil here, and if it stopped all the oil here, these people would starve to death, and they would come and attack these folks, which would make this guy try to use these people as a scapegoat, and they're our friends. Like, every day at the DOD, I swear to God.
Research institutes, but reports...
Oh, hold on. I had to put this like...
This work are often taken up by civil servants because these projects are carried out at the government's behest or are funded indirectly by it.
Oh no, the government pays for certain medical research, and they actually want to craft the messaging about how it reaches the public so that people don't panic and jump off fucking bridges. Here, you want to know, Russell, you want to know why scientists worry about the messaging that gets out to the public about science that is unclear or is not, while the best information isn't there, but the best information they have is to take certain precautions. You know why? Shit like this. That's why communication is important. You communicate for a fucking reason. Here's the big question. The biggest question of this entire video, and what's really, truly terrifying, Russell, is why don't you just post these fucking articles on a blog? If communication and shaping of communication isn't important to clarifying, or in your case, obfuscating the genuine details in a story, then why don't you, instead of having a vlog online where you make this bullshit up, post these articles on a Twitter feed with no commentary? Why don't you just have a rolling barrel edition of stories you think are important? And even that would be an act of editorial communication. And pretending that it isn't is cartoonishly dumb.
Examples range from research on TB and badgers to studies on COVID-19's prevalence. There's a lot of controversy about badgers and tuberculosis. You bloody badgers! I don't even think there's such a thing as badgers. I think the government invented badgers. Oh, also COVID-19. Yeah, I've heard of that.
I know that's an attempt at humor. It's supposed to dismiss the idea that she's talking about a broad range of issues. And apparently, this is an English thing. That's why she brought it up. I mean, and the weird thing is, what shit rag would even write this to distract people? You know what I mean? Why won't they oh, shit. The Guardian, 200 years of badger calls. Hello, badger. Campaigners say expansion is a betrayal as government had pledged to phase out the cull. This is in 2020. This is... Their articles on Ukraine are shorter. Jesus. No, you cannot, Ginger. We don't need no stinking badgers.
During the pandemic, major COVID studies carried out at universities were commissioned by government departments and involved scientists working collaboratively to the public's undoubted benefit. However,
you're just rolling right by the word undoubted, right? You're just going to breeze right by the public's undoubted benefit.
Independently gathered scientific data also got swept up into a communication system designed for publicising the government's ideas and essentially political activity. I was approached several times by government comms experts frustrated by the mixed messages emanating from senior scientists who spoke openly about uncertainties and gaps in our knowledge on everything from
uncertainties and gaps in our knowledge. As this rolled forward, politicians who are fielding calls from constituents, dealing with death rates, talking to hospital administrators, understanding the dwindling number of hospital beds in the country, were calling scientists and going, how bad is this going to get? How do we mitigate it? Will this mitigate it for sure? Or will it just, or are we going to overcompensate in one area? Are we stacking up too many fucking ventilators? Should we be doing something else? I don't know. Okay, so I'll just go on television and go, scientists just don't fucking know. We don't know. So, I don't know. Keep dying, folks. We'll get back to you.
R-squaring to the risks of school kids driving transmission. How could they curtail this? So Fiona Fox, chief executive of the Science Media Centre, is
wondering how the government wants us to curtail knowledge.
That conversation, debate, discussion and analysis was being curtailed during the pandemic.
No, it wasn't. Fuck you.
Senior scientists who spoke openly about
I was approached by government comms experts frustrated by the mixed messages emanating from senior
gaps in our
scientists.
knowledge on everything from mask wearing to the risks of school kids driving transmission. How could they curtail this? So Fiona...
How could you curtail the mixed messages? Can we get on one fucking page? The people are dying and you fuckers are going, I don't know. I mean, masks statistically, is that, I mean, there's a plus. And he wants to curtail the mixed messaging coming out of the scientific community in an emergency. And watch this asshole turn that into a criminal activity.
Chief executive of the Science Media Centre is saying that conversation, debate, discussion and analysis was being curtailed during the pandemic. Now, what was being used to underwrite all of the measures?
First of all, no, that is absolutely not what was said in the article. Not even in the overall article, which is right. Whoops, where? Hold on. Right here. Oh, where are we? This article right here, we got the whole thing, but it's not even in the part he just fucking read. He's lying about that piece of conversation that he just read to the people in his audience. How do these fuckers get away with this? How is this okay? How do followers of Russell Brand not just react and discuss? How do you not just go, wait a minute, hold on, back that the fuck up. They can, this is on YouTube. They can rewind and watch that again just like we did.
Taken during the pandemic, the lockdowns, the distancing, the masks. I'm not saying that those things weren't necessary, but...
Yeah, but by the way, neither is she. Notice the whole undoubtedly benefited part.
Fiona Fox is saying that debate was being censored. Certainly.
No, she's not. She is not saying debate was being censored. She's saying there is a mismatch between scientific thinking and the way scientific communities work and politicians politicians' responsibilities to the public they recognize. That their constituents, the people that put them there, and who they represent. And in the mix of those two things, there is a real effort that humanity engages in. I'll give you an example. Is it true that asteroids come close to the Earth with some regularity? Well, it depends on the word close. In terms of space, yeah. In terms of, close like a distance you can actually fathom, not really. But when a scientist talks about it, they'll go, this one's passing close by Earth's orbit. Where is it? It's like, 8,000 miles outside the moon's orbit. That's the closest they've ever gotten, I think. That they don't, little meteors that burn up. And every time they do one of those stories about like when a movie like Deep Impact comes out and they start doing local news does all these stories about asteroids hitting the Earth. They do this all the time. You guys have seen them. I know you have. Whenever local news does those stories, there is like nationwide, there is a trackable number of bump in suicide rates. Now, the scientists aren't saying anything, but their perspective on all the science that they have, there are gaps in their knowledge, but they'll leave some of those gaps out or over-exaggerate the gaps in their knowledge, which just leaves an amorphous zone for people who are afraid in their head. But this asshole doesn't care. Like I said, he's a fear farmer. Every time that goes on the news, there's a statistical bump in suicides. From a political standpoint, that's fucked. First of all, you can't do anything about it. They don't have a mitigation strategy. And if you're trying to, the only political reason to talk about this stuff is knowing full well that, well, talking about it might raise suicides in the country. However, if people don't know about this threat, they won't understand why I'm funding NASA research into doing something about it. And they're not aware of the threat, so that I might get voted out and somebody might replace me that doesn't believe in this kind of funding at all. And then eventually the Earth will get hit by an asteroid. Like that's the necessity of it. Yeah, that's the conversation. That's the choice you have to make politically. Oftentimes, especially when it comes to shit like COVID and I guess badger calls, there is no good story. There is no upside. There's just a lesser of two evils. And if you're in the business of actually having to make a lesser of two evils decision because actual people's lives are on the line, you can't operate in broad swaths, totally lacking in scientific backing. And you also can't speak in purely scientific terms based on an enormous amount of ignorance and speculation mixed with minor details that are coming in as you get them. And you have some strategies in the past that have worked with similar things. So we should do those until such time as we improve our awareness of this particular disease. We can stop things like tuberculosis and other stuff with masking and those kind of things. So since this is a coronavirus, perhaps that will help. And in time, and it did. It didn't stop the spread of it, but it lowered the viral load that people had and kept them alive. Your exposure to it, how much you were exposed to, has a direct impact on and which strain it was, has a direct impact on your survivability rate. That's why a lot of like relatively healthy healthcare workers who got big doses of it early on ended up dying when they might have survived it if they'd been masked up at the time when they encountered this patient. Even though they would have gotten it, their body would have, not just been overwhelmed by disease cells. This is all science that moved as we went. There's literally a study in June 2020 where they're like, we've never really done a study on whether or not masks help mitigate this shit. And they do. But because there have been no studies before that, Dr. Fauci was like, we don't have any science that says that masking will stop this. And yet, best case scenario, it's the best we got right now until we figure out what the fuck is going on. That is not him lying. That's not him, and the right does this. The right was like, he was a virulent, Trump said this, virulent anti-masker, and now he wants you to wear 5 masks, right? As if time doesn't move forward, as if science doesn't find out more, and as if politicians don't have a very real job dealing with a social structure and the legal ramifications of their actions mixed with the available science. This is so fucking childish.
Information was being highlighted and amplified during the pandemic. Forget for a moment that the government, I don't know what they thought about it, but they were having parties. That's a fact. So
yeah, they were having parties. They were just partying because Boris Johnson, after he'd been vaccinated, went to one of these fucking parties. It was a huge scandal. Because they were still socially distancing. The rules were such like that. Or like everybody who was vaccinated at Gavin Newsom's dinner. So and when you're eating, you take your mask off. Like we've been doing that anyways at that point. We got a picture of them. They're all sitting and having dinner, eating. Yeah, because nobody eats through a fucking mask. And they'd all been vaccinated.
I don't know if they were terrified or not, but parties they were indeed having. Meanwhile, debate was being controlled. Now, remember, the conversation we're having...
And by the way, no, debate was not being controlled. Messaging was being clarified. He was trying to mitigate the crosstalk of multiple scientists who were like, we can do everything. We can't do anything. Somewhere in the middle is a functional strategy to save lives. And we got to work out what it is. Because you fuckers, if you're just left to your own devices, will prattle on about the bioscience of it with speculating on limited information instead of going out and getting it.
Is that we're not currently living in that horrifying dystopic vision that we just saw of people wailing and crying in Chinese towers.
Yeah, but Boris Johnson went to a party, so it's basically my cat's in a bag.
But we are living in a state where the government is using the authority gleaned from science to establish regulatory principles. So we're...
Right. Yeah. We live in a functional society. Yeah. Yeah, we have things like the FDA and the CDC, because, you know, we didn't used to have those, and smallpox would wipe everyone the fuck out. What?
On a gradient. They were asking the wrong person. Good work, Fiona Fox. Stand up for true science. I argued that...
I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. He isolated that sentence for a reason. This is just like Jimmy Dore's show. They take the articles, instead of doing what I do, which is put the article up there, scroll through it. It's right. The whole fucking thing's there, kids. Maybe they don't want to show the ads. Maybe their advertisers don't like it when they do that. But you can go through, and I suppose you could highlight parts of it. Like this, instead of cutting out pieces and pretending it says something else. I was approached several times by government comms experts, communications experts, people who are experts in communication when it comes to politics, dealing with people, frustrated by the mixed messages emanating from senior scientists. Senior scientists were cross-talking and not helping, who spoke openly about the uncertainties and gaps in our knowledge. Who spoke openly? Oh my God. How could they, even in this curtailed, censored environment, they spoke openly about the uncertainties and gaps in our knowledge on everything from mask wearing to the risks of school kids driving transmission. How could they curtail this? How could they curtail the mixed messages about the uncertainties and gaps? Because it's fucking killing people. I know there are things you don't know. Give me best case scenario. Should people be swimming right now? We know there's a shark and the McKittrick kid is dead. Right. Is it coming back? Well, I don't know. Can we talk to somebody who does? Yes, Richard Dreyfuss would like a word. But he always cuts this they were asking the wrong person. I understood their frustration, and that's the next sentence, by the way, after this. Yeah. Let's see where he goes from here. I understood. Oh, look at that. He took out, I understood their frustration. I argued that messaging is for politicians. Why would you take out that sentence, Russell? Why would you take, or that section of the sentence? Look at that. I argued that messaging is for politicians. I understood their frustration, but Jesus Christ. 5 million subscribers. These people are getting a hot dumbass injection every goddamn day.
Messaging is for politicians, and that glossing over uncertainty and conflicting views would risk undermining public trust in science at a critical time. That is what happened, isn't it?
No, it isn't. People like you undermined it. There is no such thing as the science on COVID because it was ongoing. And glossing over uncertainty and conflicting views is not their job. The uncertainty and conflicting views is shit that is to be worked out. What they need are best practices. How many lives will masks save me? 60%? 20%? 10%? Is everybody masking worth saving those 10%? Well, I mean, statistically, people die all the time. All right, fuck off. Leave the room. You're being censored. Would risk the glossing over uncertainty and conflicting views would risk undermining public trust in science at a critical time. It didn't. We'll do a postmortem later on. And I guarantee, we'll see.
Like, so remember, if people are unvaccinated or if people listen to wacky conspiracy theories, glossing over uncertainty and conflicting views, has that happened? Have you seen people being censored and shut down? I've seen it. I've seen newscasters saying...
That's a lot of fucking chopping. I've seen it. I've seen them glossing over things. Like what, Russell? Like what?
Same thing on different channels, politicians saying the same thing in different countries. Fiona Fox here is saying that science...
It's weird. Oh, I thought it was just a UK thing. You mean science in other countries were dealing with the exact same uncertainty, and politicians in those countries were dealing with that same uncertainty and trying to save as many fucking lives as they could, while the science are going, well, we don't have the exact numbers. I don't fucking... Give me my best guess. I'm trying to save people's lives. Yeah, but there's nothing... You know, we're going to have to do a 6 to 10 month study to guarantee this. All right.
Necessarily involves discourse, experimentation, debate, varying voices. It's complicated.
Yeah, I mean, teaching someone to swim while they're drowning might be a better thing than throwing them a life preserver because, you know, we've understand that 8% of the time, people will avoid the life preserver altogether in studies we've done with forced drowning.
Even if you say that the governments of the United States and the governments of the UK did what they did with the best intentions at heart, to protect people, to preserve life, part of what they did in order to do that was gloss over conflicting views. And
right. Yes, they did. And it was a good thing. You act like there's not a fucking option there. They had to gloss over conflicting views to save lives. The goal is to save lives, right? Yeah. Then they were doing their fucking job. I mean, we gotta live a complicated life, even if it means a bunch of dumbasses get sick and die, or don't know that there's a threat and don't worry about it because they don't understand the difference between statistical anomalies and reality, or margins of error. You know, if they don't understand that, should they really be alive? Good Lord. Teach life-saving skills while they're drowning. That's right. That's the whole thing. A scientist will agree that it's better if a person learns how to swim when they're young, so the skill will be developed so that even in the most difficult situations of flooding or being thrown overboard or injured or whatever, they will have a much stronger skill. The guy's in the fucking water. Well, I understand that. But our studies show that, all right, either I'm pushing you in and you're going to drown with him, or go get the fucking life preserver. Well, it'll only work if he grabs it. We'll see if he does. But what if he doesn't? Stop censoring me.
I will say this, I've always thought this, that even your classic dictators, your Stalins, your Hitlers, what they think in their heads is, I know I'm right. If you knew what I know, you'd do what I'm telling you. I don't have time to explain.
Yeah, it's basically the same. Stalin, Hitler, Fauci, Boris Johnson's comms office. I mean, you know, there's so little difference between people dealing with a pandemic and trying to save as many lives as possible and worrying about the blowback messaging problem later. It's basically it's a version. It's like it's sort of like an ideological concentration camps. We're all like cats in bags in Auschwitz. Fuck you.
All this to you, so we're going to make you do what I know is right. That's dictatorship. Now,
they're not making people do anything. The scientific group aligned with the government is meant to, and paid for by the government, to give them the best information they have available. And the politicians that have been elected are there to, in theory, save as many members of their constituency from dying unnecessarily as possible on the regular, as sort of a baseline job thing. This has nothing to do with other groups of scientists coming out and going, hang on, and being able to say shit if something was genuinely dangerous. But politicians being aware that scientists going, we don't know, during a mass panic or when they're trying to deal with an epidemic, a pandemic that's cascading across the globe, killing, at that point especially, Like thousands of Italians were dying. In China, they still got a zero COVID policy, and it came from there. The theory would be that they're aware of how awful it is because they've had more experience with it for longer. And they're still having a zero COVID policy. That's the video he fucking showed at the beginning. That's the Shanghai lockdown. We've extended masks on fucking planes for 2 more weeks. England doesn't even have a fucking mask mandate. And they mitigated their deaths. Sweden's let it ride policy didn't actually help. More people died unnecessarily. We know this now. I don't give a rat fuck if the assholes that watched fucking Zeitgeist or Alex Jones or fucking follow Trump around in a suit that looks like it's made out of bricks because build that wall don't trust science all of a sudden because the government and I don't care. The vast majority of people aren't that fucking dumb.
This is not Stalin. This is not Hitler. You know, this is not.
Yeah, but are you sure? Look at this. Fuck. I'm making this analogy, but I'm not making this analogy. It's a simile. I'm making this simile, but it's not really a simile. I'm making this comparison that isn't really a comparison, but is it really? I mean, it is.
Time to explain all this to you, so we're going to make you do what I know is right. That's dictatorship. Now, admittedly, this is not Stalin. This is.
That's dictatorship. Yeah, that was the thing about. You remember when the captain of the Titanic was telling people to get on lifeboats? What a fucking. I mean, basically, he was Hitler.
Hitler. You know, this is not those horrifying Chinese towers, but this is glossing over information. Which way is it going? Is it going the right direction? Which way is it heading? Is it heading towards utopia, freedom?
Asshole. You're reading from an article in The Guardian written by the scientist that was on that panel about her mitigations and her problems dealing with the comm section of politicians so that they can either modify their stance in future and learn from it, or the scientists themselves can understand that there's a disconnect between the two. And the very fact that you're reading this article from The Guardian in your country is an example that you're not in a fucking dictatorship. You're not even fucking close. This is like these assholes who think that having a 9-to-5 is basically slavery. I mean, we're kind of slaves, aren't we? Aren't we all basically slaves? Like that kind of, I mean, that's grotesque. No, you're not. Life, nobody ever said life would be easy, but I guarantee your life isn't as fucking hard as it was for slaves. Shut the fuck up. Slaves couldn't quit, ever. Slaves couldn't declare bankruptcy on their credit card debt. And this comparison is just fucking gross.
Democracy, the land grab for science communication is occasionally.
So what I tell you, he was going to love that sentence. The land grab for science communication. Excuse me, it's land lease, because by your own, by the top of the article, these are scientists paid for and funded by the government to provide them with the best science available in a circumstance like this. It's not a land grab. They're not grabbing any land at all. They are purchasing some land to build something. And that building is not pure science or pure politics. It's a mixture of the two, because both are necessary in a fucking emergency.
Taken a more sinister turn in the form of proposals such as changes to the Civil Service Code, which would have prevented any government-funded scientist from speaking to the media without ministers' permission, or the anti-lobbying clause, which would have barred scientists in receipt.
You think he's going to go, he's going to read the sentence where it says these didn't happen, but
government money from petitioning for policy change. Wow, so if you've ever received government money, you can't argue with the government.
Yeah, that's so weird. What a weird policy now. Apparently that's what's happening in England. And you know how I know? This lady who is a scientist who works for the government is writing an article in a newspaper arguing with the government. I mean, it's basically the end times.
That's censorship. That's state control. That's authoritarianism. I'm not arguing that it's as bad as China or our countries are as tyrannical as Russia. I'm not making...
Hey, fuckhead, it's not even happening. That's what this part right here. This is what he just read. From speaking to the media without minister's permission, or the anti-lobbying clause, which would have barred scientists in receipt of government money from petitioning for policy change, right? Because this is so people who work for pharmaceutical industries can't talk to the government about, maybe you should use our drug. This is something that Russell would normally, this could be the basis of an entire Russell Brand video, is that somebody, this Fiona person, is trying to force the British government to get rid of their anti-lobbying clauses that they have with pharmaceutical companies so that they can change policy on the government, right? We've seen shit like this from him. This sentence alone would be something he would rail against in theory. But never mind that. These attempts were seen off. But the fact that people sat in Whitehall developing such policies should remind us that vigilance is vital. They didn't develop the policies. Someone suggested them, and they were seen off. All possibilities are going to be floated, short of like total genocide, unless you're Russia or China, I suppose, are going to be floated in democracies. What's the farthest we can go as far as, crowd control and that kind of stuff in an emergency, and what's the least we can do with the best benefit? And that's our parameters for conversation in a free society. If there is mass food riots because of a breakdown in something, what's the most we can do to mitigate damage and death while violating as few constitutional rights as possible, if any? And what can we do now and to make sure that never happens? This is the parameters of conversation that happen all the time in a civil society and a functioning government. You know why? Because of reality. You run like games like Jade Helm and all these other things as a military in case shit happens and you're ready for it. Who gives a fuck if the Alex Joneses of the world say this is proof that NATO troops are going to take over the United States and we're being controlled by both? Yes, vigilance is vital. If you actually give a fuck about human life, those are the parameters for a politician. What's the most we can do without violating the constitutional rights of our citizenry? And what's the lowest impact stuff we can do right now so that we never get there? I'll call him fucko. Fucko.
Reductive or simplistic claims. But what I am saying is we are observing an increase of government authority in the realm of science, which is used to underwrite integrity and authority.
No, you are not. You are seeing a discussion between something that politicians and scientists were largely unprepared for in the year 2020. That's what this is about. That's what that article's about. That's what those meetings at Whitehall are about. That's what the tug and pull between science and comms teams and politicians is all about. Because both groups, for a myriad of reasons, were specifically unprepared for a pandemic. And both groups have materially different goals in the carrying out of the purest version of their duty. And unfortunately, you had two groups that were wholly unprepared, that lack of preparation, specifically in the UK, was at a crossroads. And you are currently at this crossroads, and this article and the conversation this woman is talking about is fucking 4 cars at an intersection that's 4-way stop going, after you, no, after you, no, after you, no, after you. And then 2 of the cars fucking hit.
The objectivity. That's what science is offering. You can't argue with this. This is just true. It's science. Well, it's science with a gun to its head. It's science, but you can't argue with us. It's science, but we can't have any contrary views. That's not science at all. Remember,
nobody put a gun to science's head and said, fill the gaps with bullshit. It's not science with a gun to its head. The public had a gun to its head. And it was the politician's job to get the gun lowered. And scientists were like, well, technically speaking, you could lower it, but that would if it still goes off, it might shoot them in the physical cavity. And, body mass injuries, a bullet can ricochet around the... Yeah, okay, fuck off. It's pointed at their head right now. Well, maybe if you pointed it up, but the bullet's going to land over there. What do you think yeah, but statistically... All right, tell you what. Let's try and get the gun raised then, above head level. Good? Yeah, but there's still a gun in public. We can't remove the fucking gun. Lowering it kills more people, right? Yes. So we raise the gun until we can get rid of the gun. Agreed? Well, all right, fuck you. Guys, the statement is, tell everybody the gun goes up. We're trying to get the gun raised until such time as these assholes can figure shit out.
a couple of days ago, we did a video that showed how evidence-based experimentation within universities
No, you fucking well didn't.
is already being co-opted by the pharmaceutical industry. So you have the power of the pharmaceutical industry.
No, you didn't. You didn't break any fucking news. Pharmaceutical industries, CDC, NIH, operate with medical groups and medical colleges and universities all over the place, working to fund expansion of studies in different areas and trying to move shit forward so that they can be a part of or support or benefit from the alleviation of cancers and fucking communicable diseases all the time. That's a good thing. If there are times when there's corruption going on around it, we root it out and stop it. But the practice itself is a functioning one. It's why the West has the best vaccines. You can hate the idea of big pharma in the abstract and still recognize that the coordination between colleges of medicine and universities and medical centers all over the world and the CDC and pharmaceutical companies and pharmacology scientists all over the fucking globe going, maybe try this, maybe try this. We tried this and it didn't work. How about that? Maybe this will work for something else. Like, that's always ongoing.
You have the authority of the government, and yet you still have the claims of this is science, this is science. And what does that science ultimately do? It leads to authoritarianism. Don't question our myths.
No, it doesn't. It led to this lady writing an article, an op-ed in The Guardian.
Because they're based on science. Well, we've seen where that can lead in extremis. I'm not saying we're there yet.
I'm not saying we're there yet. I'm just saying we're there. I'm basically a cat in a bag. All right, fuck off. There's really 8 more minutes of this shit?
Thanking God that we are not. And I'm praying that we never get there. But praying will not...
Yeah, you have to vote. You got to vote for best practice and best people. And you can't just go, well, I don't like either one. I'm not inspired by either one. Why do you... They're basically the same when they fucking well aren't.
Be enough. Action will be required. Awareness will be required. Specifically, literally, your awareness. Another area...
Oh, why mine? Now you're giving me a fucking hobby?
We're seeing the exertion of control, where we're seeing the increase of authority is in the social media sphere.
Yeah, and it's like, it's terrible. I feel so censored on YouTube currently, where I've got 5.5 million viewers.
On social media of a form right now. And we're aware of censorship. We're aware that there are certain things that can be said and certain things that can't be said. How are you not banned from this channel? We stay awake and we play by the rules, and we do our best to communicate openly and honestly while recognizing the limitations that are inherent within our systems. Here.
So that we can make money off this. Because if we wanted to speak completely freely, we have the money to build our own servers and just post videos. We could put stuff on BitChute, but they don't have the ad rev. I can't buy a second house in the country on fucking Rumble. That's why. Everybody complaining about being kicked off of Twitch or YouTube or curtailing their message to stay on there while decrying the platforms is only doing it because these are the two biggest platforms if you want to actually make a living doing this. Trust me, Restream allows me to go across a wide variety of sites. I'm on twitch.tv/AlSparks right now. Like and subscribe. Please don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to get subscribers up. Always. It's part of it. YouTube, same deal. Facebook, Twitter. But I have access to, I mean, you can fucking stream on LinkedIn. They don't have any limitations. I don't even think they bother to check. They don't even have the means to have an algorithm to check. If you were, you could literally go, Dave, Akron, Ohio, anti-vaxxer, PhD, and then you could just fucking live stream to LinkedIn. This dude is on YouTube and Rumble and playing by the rules on YouTube and Twitch specifically. He's on these sites to make money. He curtails his message not because of censorship. Because if he gave a fuck about censorship and he wanted to speak, in a pure form, there's umpteen different places he could put it. He could go to Truth Social. This is about money.
Caitlin Johnston, who's a fantastic journalist in my opinion, not perfect, but a fantastic journalist in my opinion, has written beautifully about social media censorship. Check this out. Twitter has been working...
Yeah, it's great on Substack, which, by the way, Substack is a subscription-based blogging platform. It's like Medium or Tumblr or, I don't know, getting your own fucking website. But people can pay you and get it through subscriptions, and you can make a living blogging. Now, some people will say it's a great opportunity for independent journalists to get their stuff posted, and they can do this. It's also a great place for propagandists and liars to post shit that wouldn't pass muster at any newspaper in the fucking world.
Steadily increasing intimacy with the United...
Read the fucking title of this. Look at the title. Twitter is, in all caps, state-affiliated media in quotes. Don't say is and then put state-affiliated media in quotes. The fuck? That's terrible journalism. I'm saying that's the area where I would say she's not perfect.
States government, since the US empire began pressuring Silicon Valley platforms to...
The US empire. Oh dear.
Regulate content in support of established power structures following the 2016 election. Okay.
Established power structures like democracy, uninterrupted by violent foreign influence. Ew. Is that really freedom? I mean, are you really free if you can't see ISIS beheading videos and child porn? I mean, if you can't have deep fakes, put on online nonstop using whatever major hashtag there is, or have an army of trolls literally misspelling hashtags and then boosting them so that it bifurcates political movements into subgenres, and they don't even realize they're missing everyone else's part of the conversation to dilute political thought on Twitter. If you can't do anything about those, are you really free? If you can't have that, if you can't have fucking Fuzzy Bear and Apartment 69 fucking with your political discourse nonstop, creating fake BLM accounts, are you really free if you can't have that?
Now we're seeing that social media and government are operating in tandem. You know this already. I'm not telling...
No, we don't. Honestly. They're not operating in tandem with governments. If they were, Trump would have never lost his Twitter account while he was fucking president. The president of the United States lost his Twitter account while he was fucking president.
You don't know. In 2020, Twitter was one of the many Silicon Valley corporations who coordinate directly with US government agencies to determine what content should be censored in order to secure the presidential election.
Well, that's just a fact. To secure. Why is secure in quotes? Is that a quote? Or is that, well, I don't mean secure, but I do mean secure. I mean, basically, I'm a Shanghai cat in a bag.
Videos recently about how the Hunter Biden laptop story was suppressed. You know that already. You told.
No, it wasn't. There is no Hunter Biden laptop, and you are lying. Fuck you, 100%. Change my mind. Bring it on. At me. There is no Hunter Biden laptop, and anybody who says so is literally carrying right-wing talking points to obfuscate both the $2 billion deal that Jared and Ivanka made in with the Saudis that apparently this motherfucker couldn't give a crap about. Under normal circumstances, it would seem like this is the kind of corruption this guy would care about. Hasn't even mentioned it. Not even gonna come up. You know why? Because it would piss off his MAGA followers. That is where he makes most of his money nowadays. It's about money. It's like little pharma.
Us, we got into that story because of you guys. Now what we're hearing.
Yeah, because you guys in the chat, John, who's totally from Ohio and not a Russian bot at all, said, I really believe the Hunter Biden laptop is so true.
Is that there was ongoing collaboration around censorship. In 2021, Twitter announced that it was orchestrating mass purges of foreign accounts on the advice of the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, ASPI, which receives funding from many government institutions, including the US State Department.
Oh, so everybody's just a sock puppet. Oh, terrible.
It has also coordinated its mass purges of accounts with a cybersecurity firm called FireEye, which was founded in 2004 with money from the CIA's venture capital arm, In-Q-Tel.
Citation needed. Hold on. In-Q-Tel? In-Q-Tel. They have a website. It's weird, Russell. They were able to put up their own website, I guess. Maybe. Let's see. Visionary startups, innovation on a mission. This is In-Q-Tel. This is their website. IQT.org. Huh. They're a nonprofit. Go fucking figure. It's the Q part that really fucks with me, yeah? Visionary startups, experienced VCs, dedicated government professionals in In-Q-Tel. No, hey Siri, stop. In-Q-Tel leads from the center of this matrix. Oh God, the matrix. They're in the matrix. Connecting cutting-edge technology, strategic investments, and purpose to enhance and advance national security for the U.S. and its allies. They should really put that on the last page. What if people find out how we work? Okay, how we work. The data analysts can quickly translate, ingest, and distribute information. Hold on. Whoops. The startup company understands how to build successful relationships with our government partners. The cybersecurity analysts can better identify vulnerabilities in their networks. All because of tech, expertise, and sophisticated insights brought to you forth by In-Q-Tel. For startups. So if you want to join the startup and you've got you're a private company and you're like, hey, I got a great idea for a thing and I think it would work and help people with, ransomware and shit like that. And maybe I could get a government contract. Yeah, you go to the website. More than just an investor, In-Q-Tel invests in visionary, commercially focused companies we believe in and see the opportunity to build a long-term partnership on behalf of our government partners. In-Q-Tel is a careful, selective, strategic investor. Investment and partnership with In-Q-Tel demonstrates the company and its technology have real utility and potential to deliver national security capabilities. Startups have traditionally avoided pursuing the federal marketplace due to requirements using limited time, capital, and other resources they cannot afford to give. It's simple. In-Q-Tel knocks down barriers to working with the government. 500 plus investments and counting. There's FireEye. By getting involved early in investments such as FireEye 4 years ago before its IPO, IQT helps influence product direction, resulting in features first suggested by government partners. Submit a business plan. They should really keep this here. Okay, so that $500K to $3 million investment ranges that they'll put into companies. 70% of In-Q-Tel's portfolio companies have never done business with the government. You can, but you don't have to. It's gun to its head science, really. Let's see, measure whatever. Government partners, digital intelligence, trusted infrastructure. Okay, autonomous systems, industry 4.0. That sounds terrifying. IT platforms, AI and machine learning. Look at this brain with a chip. They're going to put a chip in your brain. I just knew it. Intelligent connectivity. Obviously something we haven't seen much of today. Data analytics. For venture capital, yeah. So this is, and I don't know why it's the CIA. It's definitely a government funding partnership. Autonomous delivery. Oh, dear God. Look at that. It's a suitcase. It's a suitcase bomb. They're going to do it deliver with drones. Spatial computing in a 3D world. The next generation of information. People meeting across the table from each other in 3D space without actually being there. Like, this, like you can have a holographic meeting. Let's see what else they got. The unforgiving asymptote of chasing machine learning gains. The need for investing in climate tech. Dear God, they're trying to destroy us all. Commercial satellites expose authoritarians to unwelcome transparency. No wonder, what's her name? Caitlin and Russell hate this. They're spying on Russia and China. Isn't this another form of authoritarian? If I spy on a dictator without their permission, am I not a dictator myself? Where in the World, Part 3, further analysis of cross-view image geolocation. Where in the World, Part 2, this is the stuff that's been used in Ukraine, by the way, to prove Russian war crimes. Another reason why they probably hate this. Introducing Atlas, a tool for visualizing deep tech relationships at scale. Ooh. Data visualization. Okay. Look at that. Brainstorming. Atlas visualization shows 11 IQT Labs projects, outermost nodes grouped into 4 themes. Again, why use the Atlas? Well, it's a great way to like hook up with like-minded people. Whatever. All right.
Firstly, why has the CIA got a venture capital arm? You know what we're going to need if we're going to...
Well, the assertion that it's the CIA's is the problem. Hold on. Let's see. I'm sure if I look up CIA and In-Q-Tel, since they work in information analytics. Scholarly comment, let's see. This is their argument for it. This is Northwestern Law. In-Q-Tel, the Central Intelligence Agency as venture capitalist. Senator CIA, principal foreign intelligence, chartered the first government-sponsored venture capital firm dubbed In-Q-Tel in 1999. In-Q-Tel represents the 21st century fusion of U.S. spy efforts with venture capital industry. Envisioned as a platform to expand the research and development efforts in the CIA into the private sector, this is basically, oh dear God, now the Defense Department has been talking to Boeing about airplanes. Use CIA supply funds to make strategic investments in startup companies developing commercially focused technologies that are interests of the CIA and greater intelligence community. This comment contends that although R&D collaboration between the public and private sectors is vital and should be encouraged, such collaboration should not be in the form of a venture capital firm chartered and sponsored by the CIA. Why not? I mean, these are new industries. They don't exist without it. We're not talking about like airplanes. There were lots of airplanes before militaries started using them. The CIA is not equipped to succeed in notoriously... The CIA is not equipped to succeed in... Hold on. Okay, hang the fuck out. Wait. John. Booby. The CIA is not equipped to succeed in the notoriously perilous business of venture capital. Do you have any idea how many snakes there are in the world of venture capital? The CIA is not used. They can't deal with people like this. And heightened ethical concerns surround the making of government-sponsored equity investments in private companies. Why? We've been trying to build better bombers and shit like that forever. government contracts are given to like defense contractors all the fucking time to make stuff that may never even fucking work. Dear God, can you imagine if the US government started funding, I don't know, private spacecraft and working in public-private partnerships with what could happen? All right. Indeed, In-Q-Tel often invests in companies with international operations vicariously and unnecessarily exposing the CIA and larger U.S. government to foreign entanglements. This is their concern. So the big fear is that the CIA is going to get, spied on. Okay. This comment begins by tracing relevant developments in the funding of U.S. spy efforts in Part 2. Next, Part 3 explores the venture capital industry, paying particular attention to the interplay between venture capital and R&D. Part 4, all right. Part 4, like that's news? Okay. Part 4 then analyzes the relationship with the CIA and In-Q-Tel. Part 4. Where's Part 4? Hold on, back up. Can I read this thing or do I have to fucking buy the goddamn thing? Download. All right. Part 4. Somebody told me that Major's not on tonight, so I can go long. So here I am. Part 4. There it is. Unlike TIP, which is a public-private partnership that functions more as a pool of government grant money than a venture capital fund, In-Q-Tel is arguably a true independent venture capital firm. Oh. Just the TIP, right. This is adorable. Shortly after In-Q-Tel opened for business, an article in the Los Angeles Daily Journal described the partnership between the firm and the CIA as an out-of-the-box marriage between the federal government and Silicon Valley. As the writer put it, this is a tale of James Bond meets venture capitalist. That's not hyperbolic or anything. True, the CIA wanted to play up the mystique of James Bond, the Q in the firm's name. Yeah, that worked out well. Placed between Intel, shorthand for intelligence. Oh, thank you. Thank you. You can tell he expects the audience that reads this to be, obviously inside the beltway, I guess. Refers to James Bond's fictional inventor of the high-tech spy gear and other gadgets. Well, no. The Q shows up as a regular in spy terms all the time, and maybe they decided they were going to, but this is why even the QAnons picked it up, because the dude who called himself Q was an Intel insider. That's what he'd said. However, characterizing In-Q-Tel solely as a venture capital firm is somewhat inaccurate. Indeed, In-Q-Tel has various and correctly been called a technology accelerator. All right, correctly. And a private nonprofit venture capital company, as well as the venture capital arm of the CIA. Reflecting its focus on R&D, In-Q-Tel refers to itself as a strategic investment firm. But the best definition of its business model is supplied by an independent report prepared by business executives of national security, BENS, an organization that fosters an exchange of ideas between the private and public sectors. In-Q-Tel has been mischaracterized as a private venture capital term, observes a 2001 report. More precisely, In-Q-Tel is an evolving blend of various business, nonprofit, and government research and development R&D models. It is most analogous to a corporate strategic venture capital entity like those maintained by major technology firms. The BENS report notes that while its profit is important, In-Q-Tel primarily seeks enhanced innovation, earlier discovery of relevant technologies, and a more direct information on market developments. Again, this is the part where someone always accuses me of being a part of the CIA. So I guess I can get a board job on In-Q-Tel for the same reason. That's the dude who wrote the report that cites an article that wrote a report that is cited in another article that's cited in the Substack that she's reading. Clear? It's basically all you need to know is CIA sock puppet. They do bad. CIA bad all the time and never do good, ever. All the people who died in the CIA, stopping dirty bombs or whatever the hell, I mean, they had it coming because of other shit the CIA did when Bush was running the joint.
Spy on everyone. A venture capital arm? Yes, actually. And let's use that FireEye to...
Also, and again, I love how he reads her Substack as fact. But the Guardian article about science talking to politics, he skips around. Is like, well, it's just opinion, innit?
Purge people off of Twitter. Now, I'm not saying there aren't people on Twitter that, you know, should be purged or might be purged or ought be.
I guess you're allowing for the inference thereof, the lazy man's version of implying.
But I'm also saying that FireEye, I don't even like the sound of that. If that cropped up as a baddie in a Batman film, I'd say they've gone too far. FireEye is displeased with this tweet.
By the way, FireEye, hold on, is a company that In-Q-Tel funded. We saw that in there. Here they go. So FireEye started out as a cybersecurity startup, and they this is FireEye XDR, simplifying threat detection and response. So they have all these things. Explore the FireEye XDR. They use the Helix security platform, endpoint security. This is all for like fighting back against ransomware for both government and private entities. That's the purpose of this kind of software. Email security, cloud security. They won these three of their products won the Cybersecurity Excellence Awards in 2021. The VB100 certification report, their endpoint security was certified 100. AV Comparatives approved business security, DC 2020, or December 2020, beg your pardon. AV Comparatives business guy. This is a private company. You can buy stock. Here's their customer stories. They're used by Infosys, RCBC, the University of South Carolina, dear God, Penn State Health, home of the Biden Center. No. Where they're fighting cancer. Those fuckers, right? Like I'm using Russell's own fisting against him. Well, I'm fisting Russell. Stater Brothers Markets, One Source, Infosys. That probably means they give you information about your sis. Also, FireEye is a scary term because they're selling security.
Who's paying for FireEye? You are, through your taxes. Oh, the irony.
Well, you're not actually. It's a publicly traded company. By the way, taxpayers, I have news for you, made money on the deal. All those customers, as a primary driving investor, unless you're arguing that now, because of this, In-Q-Tel is actually not an arm of the government in any way, that money that they take in as profit as a venture capital firm for public works can also go to building other things that are necessary for the survival and safety of people and businesses.
Point out irony that displeases FireEye. Since the start of the war in Ukraine, Twitter has been aggressively boosting US narratives about...
Oh, have they? It's weird how people don't want to read all of the stuff that I've been writing about how the Russians really had to invade. I mean, there are Nazis after all.
Or by frequently showing users a Twitter topic without their having subscribed.
Oh, God. What? Stuff, promoted tweets. Dear God, I didn't subscribe to that topic. Hi, everybody. Have you ever subscribed to a topic on Twitter? Ever? Oh, I clicked on trends. That's not a subscription.
To it. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is bad. Russia, I guess, is probably a harder place to live than where I live in bucolic wonder, and perhaps where you live too. That doesn't mean that we exempt our nations from criticism, because apparently...
Who the fuck? You're on all those sites, Russell. You're not getting censored. You criticize your government and ours all the fucking time. Even shit on the Canadian government. You're not getting pushed off. Russia has shut down the internet inside the country. They are 100% state-controlled propaganda. And so, yes, soft pedaling. And pretending, like, I'm not saying it's not bad what Russia is doing. I'm just saying there's lots of bad, and how much bad.
We can affect our countries through this thing called democracy.
Yeah, we do. That's why. And by the way, the woman you're reading, Caitlin, her Substack, she's not for that. She's pro-authoritarian. She just thinks that because if it's her side that can be an authority, it's going to be okay.
It does. That's happening over there. And whatever I write down on a bit of paper, it don't matter. And I can't see what's happening over there properly because no one will let me watch Russia Today. So I like...
Russell, in the United States and in the UK, if you must, you can go to rt.com and there's a little button up in the corner. And if you click on that, it's live. That's it. No one's stopping you. Literally no one. Not here, not in the UK, not in Canada. They just don't get to ride free on American cable boxes and get pushed to the front of the algorithm, making money off of YouTube. They can exist, but they don't get to live like a tick off of Western media when they don't allow it in their own country, and they're using it in their own, and inside their own country, they're using this for violent propaganda to excuse war crimes. Fuck you. You can absolutely watch Russia Today. Nothing is stopping you. You absolutely have the freedom. They do not have the freedom to make money, which they would use to fuel their war effort and their propaganda off of YouTube and DirecTV and I guess the fucking BBC's cable boxes, whatever the fuck you use.
Focus on the country that I live in. When the invasion began, Twitter began placing warning labels on all Russia-backed media and delivering a pop-up message informing you that you are committing wrongthink if you try to share or even like a post linking to such outlets.
The phrase wrongthink does not show up. Because you might share something because you're like, oh my God, look what the fuck, look at these fuckers. Look at these monsters. I've shared stuff, and this might be shocking, Russell, shared stuff and added commentary to it of people I don't agree with. And at no time in that quoting or retweeting or quote tweeting have I ever gotten a message that says you're committing wrongthink. Occasionally, when if I was posting an article, it said, would you like to read the article before you do it? Most of the time, I've already read the article. And I'm just reposting I go back to Twitter and see where the site has put it on their account, and I post it from there. And so it just asks me, because I haven't gone through the process, which is not a bad thing. Would you like to read the article first? No. Or, yeah, I actually would. It's not a bad idea. Oh, I was completely wrong. That never happens to Russell.
On the platform. Now, that ain't as bad as the wailing in the Chinese towers.
Are you sure, though? I mean, your tweets are basically a cat in a bag.
It is an attempt to exert control on communication and control information. I personally would like to be able to read what I want and decide.
You can. Even with the wrongthink label, you can make up your own mind. I don't trust Twitter. If they say it's wrongthink, it must be right. Did that stop me? Did that stop any fucking thing?
Myself what's true, because I feel like I'm kind of clever enough to do that.
You're not. Russell, We literally in this video have watched you misread something or at least intentionally mischaracterize something. People can make up their own minds whether you're doing it because you're a fucking moron or because you're cruel. I'll have my own beliefs.
Feel you're clever enough, or would you like mummy and daddy to step in and pre-chew your information?
What the fuck do you think you do for a living, asshole? What the fuck do you think the show is? He's pre-masticating sweet, easily digestible news for the people that subscribe to his channel and barfing it into their fucking mouths.
Like a little baby bird and spit it into your mouth when all the hard work's been done. As more and more people find themselves branded with the Russia state-affiliated...
Yeah, not more and more. That's not a mass thing.
Media label, Twitter has concurrently announced that it will be hiding the visibility of any account that wears it, announcing that the platform will not amplify or recommend government accounts belonging to states that limit access to free information and are engaged in armed interstate conflict, which is a bit rich considering the fact that the US does both of those things.
Which is a bit rich because the US does both those things. And if you don't believe me, you can check my Twitter feed where I've posted a link to this article. Freely. Without being molested by my government at all.
Sort of is true.
No, it's not. It's not even sort of true. She's making a living off of Substack. You're reading her article on YouTube. You're going to tweet out this video. She's going to tweet out your reference to her video, or to her article in your video. She's going to tweet out her article.
The statistics, you know that the United States has been bombing nations continually since the Second World War.
No. Not just we have not been bombing nations continually since the Second World War, willy fucking nilly. You cannot oversimplify genuine military, action in other countries mixed with shit that Bush Cheney did that I actively protested against, as did a lot of my viewers, and mix it all in one fucking soup and go, well, if we'd have gone in Rwanda, could we have even possibly been on the side of good?
That stuff, you're aware of it. Like, I'm obviously not...
Yes, I'm aware of the narrative, and I'm finding it tiresome in a world where assholes like you are currently excusing mass graves. It is it's literally making me go back and look at old news stories that I took for granted as genuine criticism of the US government or military intervention and go, "Oh, I didn't realize this was bullshit too."
That what's happening to Ukrainian people is good. It's horrible, horrific, terrible thing. I pray that it ends as soon as possible.
What is happening to the Ukrainian people, Russell? I swear to God, this fucking namby-pamby languaging about this stuff, these half measures nonsense, is where he's like, something terrible is happening to the Ukrainian people. What? Oh, well, there's Nazis amongst them, and the Russians have to get rid of them, so they're dying, in the crossfire, while the Nazis have to be wiped out. And, of course, a lot of the Ukrainian Nazis are killing their own people. Is that what you think is happening? No, I didn't say that. What'd you say? Just that terrible things are happening to the Ukrainians. Well, then tell me what you mean. You mean Russian forces are raping and starving and beating people? They're taking Ukrainian slaves. They bombed a city 66 times in 24 hours from the safety of the Black Sea. Well, near safety. Their ship just got sunk. But at the time, they felt plenty safe. But you notice how generic the language gets?
It's not gonna change because Twitter won't let people openly communicate. That's nothing to do with that. What that's to do with...
And they're not stopping you from openly communicating. They're not stopping people from openly communicating. If there are individuals who watch RT on their website because they want to, and they tweet what they believe, and they're not affiliated with the Russian government at all, they can speak freely on YouTube about whatever they believe, as long as they're not calling for the deaths of people violating the terms of service in general. They'll be fine. But if you're actually being paid by Russians and it's traceable and you're like, I've been broomed, fuck you.
Controlling you and making you more compliant, docile, dumb, and manageable.
How? Because I don't have access to state propaganda from a country that has a closed intranet?
Of a social media company which works hand in glove with the most powerful government on earth to go around branding people's state-affiliated media is appalling. Twitter is state-affiliated media. It is an instrument of imperial narrative control, just like all...
Yes. At least we're not using hyperbolic language and revolutionary screaming into the wind. She's not a perfect writer, though, according to Russell.
Other billionaire Silicon Valley megacorporations of immense influence. Caitlin.
Yeah, like fucking Angry Birds. I don't trust them.
And they're spelling it out. So bear in mind the image of those horrifying Chinese towers.
Yes, are you terrified yet? Remember when I said you should be terrified? Let me bring you back to terror.
Wailing, the lockdowns, the death of pets. Then consider...
The wailing, the lockdowns, the death of pets. Dude, people are starving to death there. They're having to break out of their apartments and steal food. People are busting through police lines because they're running out of food in these sectors.
What happens if the government controls science and determines which science should be amplified, which science should be ignored?
Yeah, I don't know why they don't understand that crystals are just as valid as vaccines. I've read a lot of things online about this. There's tons of videos. I don't know why they don't allow it to be called science. Have you ever looked on a thing of vitamins where it says it doesn't treat any disease? That can't possibly be true.
Voices should be excluded in order that they can impose measures that they then say are based on science. Then what happens if we can't have open discourse on social media platforms?
You can. It's just that open discourse will not be polluted by North Korean military, like hackers, posing as your neighbor, going, Taunton is part of Minehead already. You know that?
Not trying to conflate the horror of what's happening.
Yes, he is. You are specifically trying to conflate
in
this.
China right now with our increasing authoritarianism through the various means described in this video. What I am doing, let me be as plain as I...
Let me walk this shit back after I've basically said that Boris Johnson going to a party after he's been vaccinated with his muddy science and should be held to a draconian level. But, there was a lot of back talk about interpersonal conversations about it internally and stuff. And basically, it's Stalin.
Manage with you. It's saying that we must really stay awake and stay aware, because the more power the state has, the more power big business has, the more power Silicon Valley has, the less power you and I...
No. I hold on. Listen to this bullshit premise. I take issue with this premise, and I'll explain why.
What big business has, the more power...
Hold on, back up. The more power government has...
stay aware, because the more power the state has, the more power big business has, the more power Silicon Valley has, the less power you and I will ultimately have.
Bullshit. All three of those are examples of the projection of power by the public. Because we live in democracies. You're half one. We live in a full democracy in the United States, where Silicon Valley is. And Silicon Valley is in constant competition with any other source that can come up. There could be a Facebook tomorrow that launches, and if it really catches on and it's got a lot of awesome features, they'll lose. We get to express our desires. We get to express our messaging, anything we want to do through all three of those sites, through the state, through voting, through big business and Silicon Valley because of the vast improvements of our life and ability, just the mapping characteristics of your phone, much less the ability to FaceTime with family. The amount of face-to-face communication that is possible now simply because of people's phones. The constant contact that you can have with loved ones and friends. What I would call, I remember when texting first became a thing and kids were always talking to each other and everybody's going, they're being antisocial. I'm like, no, they're not. They're being super social. They're being neo-social. They're being proto-social because they're with you. They're here, but they're also connecting with friends fucking thousands, if not hundreds, of miles away. I disagree, Hal. I hate Silicon Valley and what it's done to the world. Foggy, I don't know what you mean by, again, Silicon Valley is like saying, it's a too generic a term. But again, you use it all the time. We're communicating. My show is possible because of quote unquote Silicon Valley. So is his. What about Mark Zuckerberg? It's one site, one owner. They're having to transmute their entire functioning site into Meta. Facebook had to change its name because it's become toxic in some ways as a company. And Meta is having to expand into an entirely different formatting setup. Partly they're preparing for the future because there's going to be a lot of that stuff. But the existence of them doesn't mean that fucking Twitter or LinkedIn or fucking Craigslist or Angie's List or the ability to fucking use GPS to map yourself around or the fucking heart rate monitor you have on your watch or a fucking literally like the watch I got my mom an Apple Watch that she wears, whatever. The health monitoring aspects alone could save her life. If she has a heart attack, God forbid, or anything like that happens, or a bad fall, she can literally just push her hand on there and talk to somebody, but it will also tell someone if something happens to her. Those kind of things. While they absolutely can be misused, the existence of them, the people that created them, were not like, we'll be able to stop everyone's heartbeat at once. And that's what this fucker is trying to get you to believe. Right. And the idea that like, well, somebody goes, private companies, not government owned. Sorry, the government is spending your tax dollars and you can hire representatives in the form of voting to carry out your will as a voter. You have impact. You do. And if you've ever abdicated that impact, I don't want to fucking hear it. I don't want to hear about corruption in government if you've skipped a vote or voted for somebody who wasn't going to win, who didn't have a shot at winning, ever. Since it's a private act and all you're doing is bragging, voting for Jill Stein and saying you voted for Jill Stein in a bar over a fucking martini is exactly the same power. It's ego. And so if you've ever done that, I don't want to hear about corruption in government. Because instead of making the steady progress towards getting things better by choosing less evil in the choice between the lesser of two evils, if that's what you think it is, and it often isn't, it's an oversimplification, it's horrifying and terrible, and what it shows that you think of your fellow human beings is fucking toxic as hell. But if you've ever abdicated those powers, your ability to vote in any of these situations, I don't want to hear from like corrupt politicians or they're bought off or any of that shit because you didn't even bother to participate.
We should be fighting for our freedom. I
don't mean actually physically fighting. I mean, like and subscribe, leave a comment. That's just my opinion. But
through violence, I mean through non-compliance and the absolute insistence.
What do you mean through non-compliance? Again, here it is. I believe that the only way to fight corruption in a democratic society is to not vote at all. I'm not participating. I'm not doing in this. Non-compliance. I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not going to get vaccinated. I'm not anti-vax. I'm just telling you not to. I'm not, like, fucking hell.
On actual democracy, the democracy you were promised in America that's written into your constitution, the democracy that's a...
Democracy is not written into our constitution. We have a federal system. Democracy has been won over time. That's why it had to be expanded to women and people of color, because it wasn't even a guaranteed right. We have scratched and fucking clawed our way to a better, more inclusive democracy, and we're doing it all the goddamn time. And you motherfuckers were like, wouldn't it be easier if it was just basically the Wild West? I mean, I'm cute. People would want to fuck me until some asshole showed up with a rusty revolver and blew my fucking brains out.
Tradition in this country and in France and all over Europe, and will grow on the continent of Africa and in India. Wherever we are in the world, we have the same interest. We want to run our own lives. We want to be left alone. We don't want to be...
Yeah, that's not the same interest. We want to be left alone. Tell you what, Russell. Go do I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, or Naked and Afraid, and then tell me you want to be left alone. I want to be left alone to make money on YouTube. Fear farming people who are clamoring and scared and terrified and full of anxiety. And look at me like, oh, well, if I just watch this, maybe he'll finally give me, it's like Trump's healthcare plan. One day, the cure for the anxiety will show up. Nope, just more anxiety. I'll check in tomorrow.
Playthings and pawns in a game that we're not invited to play. We want...
What the fuck are you talking? What do you mean you're not invited to play, motherfucker? We're in democracies. Everyone is invited to play. That's the point.
To be free. We're not that different from one another. Own lives. We want to be left alone. We don't want to be playthings and pawns in a game that we're not invited to play. We want to be free. We're not that different from one another. Our cultural, religious, ideological, racial, sexual differences must all be put aside in the pursuit of a shared dream. Individual, communal freedom, democracy for all, freedom and control of our own lives. But that's just
my opinion. What's yours? Okay. No, especially our political and religious beliefs define the structures of the governments we live under. It fucking matters. Just because Trump and his ass clowns have been celebrating the 4th of July into the fucking garbage bin does not mean that the celebration of the 4th of July and what it actually stands for and what it's actually moving towards and the value of it in its existence is devoid of meaning because you don't give a fuck. People are like, if people are, support their nation, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Because we should be beyond all this shit or whatever. Well, we would be. If Russia wasn't going to invade Ukraine, I'm sure Ukraine would rather be beyond borders and go, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to have borders? I'm sure the Ukrainians that felt that in 2010, or maybe in 2018, about 4 years after 2014, when things started looking like they were going to settle, or right after they elected Zelensky, they're like, oh shit, we're like a modern European country. Do we really have to worry about these fucking borders anymore? I mean, what's the difference between me and a Russian? I'll tell you what the difference is. The system they live under, and the system they're willing to live under, and the system they would like you to live under. Is there anything biologically different from me and a Russian person or a Chinese person? No. Is there anything in my potential that's different from a Russian or Chinese person? No. But subscribing to political structures and saying, I'm okay with this system as it's run, and I think you should be run by that by force, is very dangerous, especially when it doesn't entail more freedom. And the idea that somehow, well, it's just flags. What's the difference between a flag? It's just colors on rags and stuff.
I think. What do you think? Let me know in the...
Yeah, let me know in the comment sections. Tell me what I should say to hook you guys even further. By the way, see
below,
my
how
show.
did you feel when you saw those towers? How do you feel about
Were you terrified? Are you still terrified? Can you
your pets? What do you think about Caitlin Johnston's article there about Twitter censorship? What do you think about the management and manipulation of scientific narratives to
the alleged manipulation that you lied about?
government control? Am I onto something? Are we heading in the wrong direction on this channel? All of this in the comments. Remember,
Yeah, tell me. I'm trying everything I can to get you to freak out and write something. This is, by the way, this is him co-opting my trolling thing. And we have some trolls here today, and thank you for being here, guys. Somebody on his team has recognized that trolls are actually helpful, that the YouTube algorithm and Twitch to some lesser degree and Facebook definitely recognize that trolls are an integral part of eyeballs. As a matter of fact, people who hate watch you are more likely to stay through commercials than people who actually like you. Even if they love everything about you, the hate watchers will go, whoa, Charmin. You know, they really will. They'll stay. So they're like, well, this channel's got a shit ton of trolls on it. Let's put some ads up. It drives down your CPM a little bit. If you say fuck and stuff like that, like I do, but that's fine.
subscribe. It really helps us.
Yeah, it really helps us if we do it. And then he does. Oh, what is this? Oh, look, he's got a little tag phrase at the end. And by the way, can I just the fear farming this motherfucker does is off the charts. Like this is as narrow casted branding as you can go on fear farming. This is impossible to ignore. It begins. Look at the graphic on this. Drones, cops, military vehicles. It begins. By the way, this is impossible to ignore. An injection needle, a redacted Pfizer document, which, by the way, I've seen this video. He never shows. He does another one of these, like read an article to somebody else. And then this one, social media, hashtag China, hashtag lockdown, so that he doesn't get China locked down and get lowered in the algorithm. This is fucking terrifying. 300,000 people have watched this of the 5.5 million people. This thing just came up today, just loaded today. Now, I know what you're thinking. 5 million plus subscribers, and most of his videos, I wonder what the top out is. Should we look at this? Let's look at his channel real quick. This is my channel. What am I doing? It's me. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah. So his legit viewership is closer to 1.5 million. Everything else is purchased. He's got at this point 1.5 million, I would say, as far as viewers or other sites that these things end up on. So there's click-through viewers, like somebody cites them on another page, or one of these like Indian farms where you get people to watch it for you. Have you seen those? Indian YouTube watch farms. Let's see. India YouTube watch companies. Well, let's see. I'm on. Let's see. Here, let's see if this does. I've got it. I'll find it. Let's see. Indian brands. Let's see. Indian companies. Find the name of it. Indian companies that watch YouTube videos for counts. Yeah. Let's see. All right. Let me see if I'll just do this. Let's see. India. I think there's other ones too, but There you go. ytviews.in. Yeah, there you go. Promote your YouTube videos with real promotional services. We're hiring. Oops, okay. World leader in YouTube promotions and branding. They watch your videos. YouTube likes. Look at that. Click to order YouTube likes. Click to order YouTube subscribers. Click to order YouTube comments. You tell me in the comment section below. Do you like Bollywood? The 1,000 fast viewership for it's $5 for those views. 2,000 fast views for 10. Look at these. So you get up into bulk. $700 to get 200,000 YouTube fast views. $1 million will cost you $2,700. Why should you promote your YouTube videos? Is this promotion? Is it really promotion? Is it now? Is it safe to buy YouTube views for my videos? Yes, it is 100% safe when you buy through us. Contact us for support. YouTube viewership, YouTube likes, YouTube subscribers. Look at this. Let's see how much it costs to buy YouTube subscribers. 50 YouTube subscribers, $3.60. Let's get up into the big money. Come on. 10,000's $550. Look at that. Bing. And Russell's a big millionaire. His Under the Skin podcast folks probably just went to these companies and paid for 2 million or so. That's why he gets 1.5 million views. Those are legit because he's got reach and he's pumping out the videos. He's doing all the other stuff. But the 5 million number bumps you up into a next level algorithm. Yeah, I have 32K. They're all real. That's what real growth looks like. That's how long it takes. Yeah, it's a fucking scam. How I got to know what you were doing on Jan 6 during the riots. I was watching it. I think I even live streamed part of it, Organic West, or went online. I was basically on Twitter and watching it on the news like everybody else. But I was in Vegas because it was like during lockdown, primary part of it. Yeah. This one's not. This one will. It's interesting. Everything gets around 1.5. It's almost like a magic number. 1.5 million views, 1.5 million views. Is there a 1 point? Yeah, here's a 3.6. Russell Brand reacts to the Will Smith slap. That's like, okay. And it's, yeah. Like that kind of shit, that's going to go viral because you have the numbers, right? Everything else. Oh, here you go. This is the Pfizer one, 2.6 million. That might explain why he did another one of these with the Pfizer. Just get the Pfizer in there and the needle. That theme shows up. We told you. They're being censored. You can tell because this video is on and still up and making money. Oy. This is how they take over. Fuck you.